The sense of othering and creating racialized space within higher education.
Jasmine McCoy completed a critical race theory graduate course in December at the University of South Florida. McCoy's research interest in blackness drew the first-year doctoral student in communication to learn more about CRT.
I left that class feeling like someone had handed me the baton to now kind of finish the journey on how to kind of disrupt systems, challenge power, call out privilege and oppression.
Dana Thompson-Dorsey taught the CRT course as the endowed chair and director of the USF Anshin Center for the Advancement of Teaching.
It's a movement. It is that idea of being critically, politically, socially, culturally conscious.
This theoretical concept, grounded in the civil rights movement, became a political apparatus in 2020. Then-President Donald Trump signed an executive order in September against funding racial sensitivity training programs related to critical race theory, white privilege, or any other training or propaganda effort. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis followed in a March 17th press conference when addressing standards for K-12 education.
Let me be clear, there's no room in our classrooms for things like critical race theory. Teaching kids to hate their country and to hate each other is not worth 1 red cent of taxpayer money.
According to the Brookings Institute, Florida is one of 28 states to implement CRT-related legislation or pre-file bills to address it in upcoming 2022 legislative sessions.
I'd like to call this meeting to order.
The Florida State Board of Education proposed an amendment to Rule 6A that dictates required instructional material in state-funded institutions. The board fielded largely divided public comments during its June 10th meeting in Jacksonville that focused on CRT.
Facts are facts, and that is what needs emphasis. Not an interpretive method like critical race theory or intersectionality that pushes a current ideological, political, or personal bias.
If this continues, we will look back and be responsible for the dismantling of the greatest country in the world by reverting to teaching hate and that race is a determining factor on where your destiny lies.
Opponents of the proposed amendment highlighted that CRT is not currently taught, which whitewashes the teaching of U.S. history.
The job of educators is to challenge students with facts and allow them to question and think critically about information. And that's the antithesis of indoctrination.
It's about not teaching the gritty parts of our history. It's about avoiding the hard conversation for the sake of white fragility. We will not allow you to call our history inaccurate or fake news because you can't handle the truth.
None. All in favor say aye.
The board unanimously passed an amendment to Rule 6A. Aye. However, the final version added that the teaching of CRT distorted historical events and added the 1619 project could not be instructional material.
Teachers interpret this ban on CRT based on this policy as now not being able to talk about racism in history.
Back at the University of South Florida, Kyan Connor, an associate professor of mental health and policy, spearheaded a resolution as chair of the Faculty Senate Council on Racial Justice. This resolution called for university leadership to support academic freedom amid pending state legislation like House Bill 57 that further targets diversity training.
But I think it's important to be a leader in this area for academics and our institutions to take a stand, to stand on the side of what's right.
So I did use CRT as my analytic tool.
CRT is now polarizing and elucidating. Those immersed in its theoretical origin and purpose stand firmly in support.
It's real because we give race power. And it's real because just based upon sheer membership in a racial group, it can dictate a number of outcomes.
And so people will be oppressed and they won't even know it. People won't have rights and they won't even know it. Critical race theory would change that.
I think if you have a racial identity that is not marginalized, I would ask you, how do you leverage your racial identity and the privileges that come with that to kind of create social change and to elevate the conversations of race.
In Tampa, Travis Bell for the USF Newsroom.